Welcome to the second episode of Manifesto Mondays, brought to you by the EFF in the Free State. This is a platform where we unpack and we discover more as to exactly what the EFF is meant to be doing as we're about to enter into the provincial and national elections in 2024. We know that the EFF has been hosting a series of manifesto launches and its national manifesto launch, and we speak about land and jobs now. And today we'll be diving deeper into understanding exactly what are the plans of the economic freedom fighters in terms of jobs, specifically also for young people. We are also joined currently by young people to ask questions and unpack deeper conversations regarding this manifesto, but of course to tell us exactly what the manifesto entails in regards to the jobs, exactly, and what the EFF is meant to be doing. We are joined by the Deputy Chairperson of the EFF in the Free State, fighter Thomas Macingwane, who will unpack to us exactly what is the EFF willing to be doing and what is the EFF promising to do, and not only that, what has the EFF done currently to ensure that people have jobs and we get the jobs that we want now. So, DC, thank you very much for availing yourself. I think firstly, you can just start by just introducing yourself fully to everyone that is watching, and you can already dive deep into the conversation. What is the EFF saying about jobs in South Africa?
No, thank you very much, Fighter Vuyo. As you have correctly said, my name is Thomas Macingwane, the Deputy Chairperson of the EFF in the province. Would like to greet our viewers who are at home and the young people who are currently with us here to engage on issues that deal directly with what the EFF intends to do when it comes to job creation, ending of unemployment, pushing back the frontiers of poverty. I think it is important that we perhaps depart from the assertion that is made by the EFF in its manifesto. The EFF makes an assertion that as of 2023, the unemployment rate has risen, it has grown to at least 42%, the highest recorded level so far since the dawn of democracy. This is to us a shocking and alarming level of unemployment, which proves that the current government has dismally failed in terms of addressing issues of unemployment. But that is not the only thing that is alarming to us, because when you look at the demographics of who are actually at the receiving end of this highest level of unemployment, it's Black women in majority, Black young women in majority, Black young people in majority. Both young and old Black people are sitting at home without jobs, either because they do not have the necessary skills to acquire the little jobs that are there in the market, or they are deliberately being deprived of job opportunities because of their either political affiliation. As we know that the current government is so desperate to cling onto power. As a result, they only give job opportunities to those that are aligned with them. But I think we should not only be stuck with making that assertion and saying that this is the highest level of unemployment that has ever been recorded, but we must equally give a solution as to say, as the EFF, what is it that we're intending to do? And you then understand why we say that as the EFF, we feel strongly that to end unemployment, one, you have to build state capacity. You have to make sure that you have a government that is well equipped to respond to the challenges that are out there. But not only that, a government that is doing things on its own. As a result, you don't need to outsource everything. You are able as government to procure things directly from manufacturers. And you can only do that when you have state-led enterprises, when you have a state-led industrialization, when you have a state-led diversified industrialization, which then ensures that when we speak of beneficiation, when we speak of the minerals that are in the country, that are found in South Africa, how do we use them to generate jobs? How do we use them to end unemployment? How do we use them to ensure that we create enough wealth for this country, that young people and Black young people in majority out there, they get access to job opportunities without necessarily having to sleep with anyone or being affiliated to any political party, but simply because they have a government that is able to do so. And that also needs to be addressed, of course, by practical plans. Hence, the EFF says that to address the issues of the backlog in housing, building houses for people, the EFF says we are going to create a state-owned construction company that is going to build houses. That on its own is going to create millions of jobs, because when you look at the current state of South Africa, there's a lot of people without houses. There's a lot of people that have applied for houses, and to this day, they are not getting those houses. And if we were to respond to that challenge adequately and start building houses for our people, it means that we're going to get more people that are going to be employed in building these houses. But what also we must take into account is that when you have a state-owned construction company that is going to build houses, it means that we're going to have a company that is not obsessed of profit, a company that is not necessarily focusing on making profit, but rather on responding to two things: job creation and also putting a decent roof over our people. But not only that, we also feel that there must be a state-owned security company, a company that is going to provide security to a lot of government, state-owned entities, state-owned properties, state-owned initiatives, where we know that perhaps if there are buildings that are used by NGOs and so forth, that belongs to the state, because the EFF says that it's going to expropriate the land for equal distribution and better use. Now, if we have those buildings that belongs to the state, they need to be safeguarded. Who's going to do that? It is the security guards that are well trained and developed by the EFF state-owned security company. That means, again, we are creating millions of jobs, because there will be young people, not only young people, even middle-aged men and women who are job seekers out there will benefit from this. I mean, if we were to talk about, if we were to unpack this 42% that we're talking about, that is approximately 15 million of people without jobs in the country. And when you come to our province, the province of Free State, you would realize that we pride ourselves with the fact that we are an agriculture province. We are known of farming. We are known of mines. But what are they doing for us? Are they really benefiting our society? They are not. Currently, they are not, because when you look at our government in terms of procurement, they are not procuring from local companies. They are not buying goods and services from infant industries that are inside the country. Instead, they are importing most of the things, which then means that we are taking raw materials out of the Free State, we are sending them overseas, where they are processed and they create jobs for those people. And then our people here at home, they are hungry, they are without jobs. So that's why we are saying that it is important to ensure that as an EFF government, we are going to protect the infant industries, we are going to promote locally produced goods and services. That on its own is going to ensure that our small Black-owned companies are going to get opportunities of growing and creating jobs to respond to these lot of challenges that are confronting our people. But not only that, we also think that as the EFF, we must establish economic zones. Because when you look at, for an example, in the Johannesburg, you've got Tennessee, you've got Virginia, you've got Velco. That is where gold mines are. And we're saying that if we are a responsible government, you have to make sure that you protect that space. You make sure that Black-owned companies, they get into that space and engage in issues of beneficiation and also producing other goods, because it's not only beneficiation that is central to the issues of mining. There's a lot of jobs that can be created out of mining, but that at this current moment is not explored enough because the current government is obsessed about profit. And that profit, which we don't know what are they doing with it. So that is why as the EFF we say that it is important to have economic zones. It is important to make sure that where you have a large production of agricultural products, that space must be protected. And you have that in Dennisville, you have that in Hofstad, between Hofstad and Belfontein, you have that in the very same between Tennyson and Virginia. There's a lot of maize farms there where we say that, but why are these farms, why are these large pieces of land, why are they not responding to these questions that we're having or these challenges that we're confronted with of unemployment? So the manifesto of the EFF speaks largely on practical solutions on how to create jobs. And we are saying that as a government, you also need to ensure that there is promotion of local produced goods and services, meaning that whoever that we're trading with, they need to know about what is produced in South Africa. And we need to ensure that whatever contracts, trade contracts that we're getting into, they must make sure that they protect our infant industries. And also, legislation is very important. As we say that in the manifesto of the EFF, we are going to amend the PMFMA and the MFMA to ensure that all state-owned enterprises, they procure 80% of what they procure must be locally produced.
Yeah, thank you very much for that, DC. I think before we really just open up to everyone to also just ask from what you have said, mention that for these upcoming elections, the EFF is focusing on led jobs and ending load shedding. So I want you to just quickly tell us that what is the importance of ending load shedding, specifically on this issue of jobs, because you mentioned quite a lot of building state capacity, building all of these things, but we currently still have a very big problem of load shedding in South Africa. Doesn't that going to impact the bigger plan that we have in terms of jobs in South Africa?
No, that is true. I mean, you'd realize that one of the reasons why the EFF says in whatever that we do, primarily we must first start by ending load shedding is because in the current setup, a lot of people have lost their jobs due to load shedding because companies are not able to produce enough because every now and then, I mean, sometimes it's 4 hours, 6 hours in a day. A productive day gets to be reduced to nothing because you spend a lot of time without electricity. That means that production stops. But not only that, it means that there's a lot of consumable goods that have gone to waste because there was no electricity, fridges were not working and all of that. As a result, a lot of companies saw it fit that for them to save the existence of their companies, they must cut on jobs. So it's important to end load shedding. But you can't just speak about ending load shedding. You need to speak about the practicality of it. How do you end load shedding? And that is why we say that as the EFF, we believe that ESCOM needs to be capacitated.
I think, DC, one other question that I just want to have, and everyone also within the audience, you can also just start thinking about the questions that you just want to pose to the Deputy Chairperson in regards to what we're currently discussing. We know that I want to put myself in the shoes of a normal South African that is sitting, that has been drastically affected by loss of jobs. And most of them are saying that we are not going to vote because the current ruling party has this catered deployment policy that they have in place that really favors only them and their people. So what is the need for me to vote when knowing that I'm just voting for people that are just going to put their own people? So what assurance can we have that the moment the EFF takes power after the 29th of May 2024, that a normal South African that is eligible to hold a specific seat and can contribute positively to the economy of South Africa, they are also going to be looked and taken care of?
I think one should maybe make reference to where the EFF is governing. You would realize that where the EFF is governing, we have made sure that first and foremost to start by insourcing security guards, we insource cleaners, and everyone else that was employed on a contractual basis by the municipalities. We've ensured that they are employed full-time by the municipalities. But most importantly, the qualifying criteria in terms of the senior management posts and all of that, the EFF has always prioritized those who have the educational background and qualifications into filling up vacancies without necessarily looking into which political party do they belong to. Even in municipalities where we are co-governing with anyone, you can go and check there. We did not deploy municipal managers because they are affiliated with the EFF, but because of their track record, because of their qualifications. So the EFF prides itself with prioritizing education above everything. That is why we say that even if you can go and check now the qualifying criteria for the EFF members to be either MPLs or MPs, and even to become councillors in 2026, the EFF has set a standard to say you must have a minimum of matric, and then you must have a degree or a post-degree qualification for you to qualify to lead into that space. Now, that says to you, this is a political party that says, irrespective of the color of my skin, for as long as I have the ethics and the the qualification that meets the qualifying criteria, I'm good for the job.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And I love how you really just connect everything, because now you just connected qualifications with jobs, which is quite important. And in the previous answer, the whole issue of load shedding, right? And also, if you are watching, even if you can watch this after the recording is out, do drop your comments below if you have any questions, and definitely we will be answering many of the questions offline regarding each and every single thing that was discussed. But now I want to deal with the young people that are currently with us here. We know that many of them have just entered institutions of higher learning. Some of them are exiting to enter into the work market. They are all hoping that after they receive their qualification, they are going to have jobs, right? And there might be different questions, of course, that you have in regards to what the EFF says in their manifesto regarding jobs. So I'm going to open to the audience. You can just raise your hand and I'll just note you, and we can then relay the question over then to the deputy chairperson. Yes, brother.
Moetapi, through you facilitate. Ka Sesotho ha re bua re re kgomo ha e nye boloko kaofela. Empa o buile ntho tse ngata. But now I want you to elaborate more, because you touched on nationalization. And so what the idea of nationalization holds, is that the state must have the full intervention, or the state must be the custodian of all resources that are in its territory. So now also at the center of this conversation around nationalization, land is of the priority. So how do we then, because as the EFF, even on our t-shirts we're always flagging lands and jobs now in the same line. What is the link? Can you please elaborate further on the link between land and jobs? That is my first question. And then, but it's fine.
Okay, yeah. I think we'll just go for the first round of questions, and then we'll go person by person so that we just don't forget the questions. So we are not going to take all questions at once. right? So that will also give the Deputy Chair an opportunity to respond. But thank you very much for that question, Fighter. Over to you, DC.
No, e re ke leboha ho wena ngwana mme. Ebile Mosotho o re ha e nyantse ka motwana mmaena a le teng. Ha re tla tabeng ya tsamaiso ya lefatshe le bo moruo, re di kopanya re di etsa ntho e leng hore le EFF re re. Ha ke etsa mohlala fela ke re o ko nke ha o le ntate wa lelapa, ebe mona mo o dulang teng o re ke ha ke mo o hirile mara ke ha a na o ka ba le tokelo kapa tetla ya hore o ka kampela kapa wa etsa dintlafatso nakong o leng wa ho batla o ke wa kgona. Empa ha tsamaiso ya lefatshe e le taolong ya mmuso, hono ho bolela hore di-minerale tse ka hare ho lefatshe leo automatically ba taolong ya mmuso. And that can only mean that whenever the government says that we for an example, if you have your mines which are on your land and you are the custodian of this land, you then dictate terms of operation on this land. You then dictate what should be the primary objectives out of this land. When you say that you want to nationalize all minerals and other strategic economic sectors, you then have a full say because they are on your land. But if they are not on, if you don't control the land, it becomes impossible for you to have control over what happens on that land because it does not belong to you. So for us to be able to respond adequately to the challenges that confront South Africans in general, which are amongst them is the unemployment. For us to be able to create jobs using these very same minerals, we have to be the custodians of the land. We have to have a greater stake in the mines. And we're not, as the EFF, we're not saying that we're not open to a public partnership, a private partnership as a state, but we're saying private cannot own more than us in our own land. Because then private, which is a representative of capital, is only obsessed about profit. And once you have an establishment that is only focusing on making profit, it then means that as and when it requires or when it sees it fit, or e ka fokotsa batho mesebetsing hore ba ne ba tswelle pele ho etsa phaello e ne ba etsa, that is what they are going to do. Empa ha tsena tsohle di le taolong ya mmuso responsibility kapa maikarabelo yana a pele ko hlokomela setjhaba se lo se phela ka hare ho naha eo. Ka ho whatever that happens, the government will always protect the needs of its people.
Thank you very much for that very insightful answer. I think it covered you quite well, my brother, right? So Fighter, you can relay your question.
Okay, thank you very much. My question is that since the EFF is the third largest organizational party in South Africa, my question is that how do we then, the EFF, we are going to rest assured that the EFF, whatever it has promised that is going to implement, what it has done for the masses in these past years, 10 years, that what it implemented in terms of that it will improve whenever it's giving any ruling power.
No. Thank you very much. I got excited when I get that question because we often get that a lot. Often people ask for it, but EFF, you're all promises. What have you done? And that is why I'd say that we'll always make reference to the municipalities where we are governing. Number one, as I've already said, my brother, that in all municipalities where the EFF is governing or co-governing, we have ensured that security guards are insourced. We have ensured that cleaners are insourced. We have ensured that we deal away with outsourcing of any kind, even when it comes to procurement of disebediswa tsa dimasepala. Preference is always given to Black-owned companies. We will not shy away from the fact that Black people are our priority because the history of this country shows that Black people were never a priority of the previous regime. So it is our responsibility to make sure that we prioritize Black people above everything. But also not only that we've insourced security guards and cleaners and contractual workers. We will make you living examples. When you go to a municipality like Machare, when we arrived there in 2016, there were workers that they were called matente. They were working on a month-to-month contract. It was the EFF that wrote a motion which was accepted and adopted by council that those workers must be employed on a full-time basis. I mean, the former regional chairperson of Lejolipuza is one of the beneficiaries. When you go to a municipality like Metsimaholo, in a very short space of time, we have had MMCs there, 4 MMCs. Go and check there. The EFF is continuing to employ young people in particular in that municipality. And if you check those people that we have employed, they are not necessarily EFF members, all of them. Yes, others have joined EFF after they've got the employment because they've realized that, but this is a political party that keeps its promises and lives by its word. Even though they are not in full power, but yet they have done everything that they have promised. They have shown us that given the necessary political power, they will do everything that is enshrined in their manifesto. By the way, we are no longer the third largest political party in South Africa. In terms of membership, we have surpassed the ANC. ANC is coming behind us. Everyone else follows the ANC.
Wow. Thank you very much for that. And I think one also important thing, specifically to young people, in terms of answering such questions when we're entering into the provincial and national government elections, is outside reading the manifestos that all of these political parties have put to the ground. You actually look back, you go on your social medias, you check what have they actively been doing on the ground. And one thing that we can all attest in terms of the EFF and being a radical organization is they are always in the forefront of addressing all of these issues. So sometimes it is a matter of something has not been done, but we know that the EFF is always going to be there to try and get a solution. That's why even when you go to the workplaces these days, DC, when you're having a problem with your boss, they will say, the EFF now, because they know that the EFF is always at the forefront of addressing these issues. So I'll go back once again to the panel. My brother, I will just come to you then to ask you a question to the DC.
Nkosi wena DC. Let me just take you back a little bit, following up on the question that was posed by Jeremiah. As you've seen, Free State has been seen as one of the agricultural hubs, and land was given to different cooperatives from different age groups. How will, as the EFF, make sure that that project is well maintained?
Okay. No, I think our plan is very clear that you can't give people land and not give them a training on how to use that land. Because primarily, agriculture is not just a sector that you just go there and think because and then that is agriculture. There's a business side of it, there is a production side of it, and our manifesto speaks about small scale farming. So that small scale farming needs a very strategic way of planning, and that includes skills development. We have to make sure that young people and those cooperatives that were given the pieces of land, they receive the necessary support from government. We need to ensure that those who are currently the owners of this land, we take from them and the students that are currently studying agriculture and make sure that they become part of the support structure to our cooperatives so that we make sure that the land that they've received is used productively and it responds to the challenges that are facing South Africans out there. I mean, for an example, South Africa is a very weird country, if one would to use that language. We are a country that has a lot of trees, but as President would always say, we don't even produce a toothpick. We have Sasol there, which is making plastic here in Free State, and yet we don't have a black-owned company that is making plastic plates. that is making the forks and knives that you get at the restaurants when you are buying takeaways. That is absurd, because you ask yourself that, but why do we have all of these things and then we are unable to use them productively to benefit our people? That is because we have a black society that has the will and the eagerness to do business, but there's not enough will from the government to give them a structural support, teaching them how to manage their finances, teaching them how to manage production, teaching them how to manage labor relation matters. As the facilitator said that recently, people do not even recognize their unions. When whatever happens at their workplace, they think about the EFF. But if you have a reckless government like the government of ANC, you would not see the need to conscientize your people, to give them a structural support of understanding how these things work, because it's not like we're born with this knowledge. That is why there are institutions of Ireland where we go and learn these things. Hence the EFF priority, not just free education, but free decolonized education.
Wow, thank you, DC. I think I want to quickly just go back just to tie the question that the two fighters brought in. It is all based around nationalization, and you have mentioned the EFF strategic intent to really nationalize quite a lot of industries. And currently, as we are looking in South Africa, we know that we have the SAA, we know that we have ESCOM, and if we remember correctly, the EFF's Treasurer General at the manifesto launch, as she was taking a lot of media interviews, Commissioner Pilo mentioned that really all of these state currently owned businesses have failed. We've seen SAA has failed dismally. We've just spoken about ESCOM. But now the EFF comes there and says that they want to nationalize all of these other major service providers to be part of the state. What then, I don't want even to say reason, but what assurance do we have then that by the moment these other industries are nationalized, that we are not going to have them fail and get into the mess that we're currently facing with these other corporations?
One of the reasons why state entities or SOEs are failing or collapsing in South Africa is because, one, you've got a businessman in the form of a minister, Pravin Gordhan, presiding over these state-owned entities. And Pravin Gordhan's primary interest is to make profit, is to maximize profit. And these entities, they end up being in the current situation because Pravin's aim has never been about implementing even the ANC's manifesto in terms of how to manage these SOEs. But you can even look at the partnerships that he has forged. It is with his friends and families, making sure that ultimately profit comes to him. Now, the EFF then comes with a different approach of saying that you can't have private having more stake in what you call the state-owned entity. It's no longer a state-owned entity once, for an example, you are a government and then you own 51% and then you consider yourself as majority. 51% is not necessarily majority. For an example, when we know the brutality of capital in this country, what they can do to make sure that they get things to be done their way. So in actual fact, that is why the EFF government says state-owned entities must have, the government must have a larger stake in those state-owned entities. And the focus of state-owned entities should be a developmental more than profit-making.
Wow, it should be developmental more than profit making. I believe that is one of the main reasons as to why the state currently lives. So I'm going to know the fighter. You have a question?
Yes, thank you so much. So now my interest is specifically on when DC was speaking about the unemployment rate. He spoke, he dissected it to say that there's a group, there's women, there's young black people who are not employed. Now my question is, once jobs are created, you have a situation where there's still discrimination of women within the agency or whoever will be employing people at the time. So I want to know now what is going to be the EFF's plan in addressing the difference in the ratio in terms of women and young black women who are leading corporates, and not in terms of, and we're not talking jobs in terms, so when jobs are being created, you find that there's high management and then there's lower positions. So the discrimination does not only end on gender, it also goes beyond to say that, okay, here is a woman, let's give her administration, and then we give someone a job that has more responsibilities. So I want to know what is the EFF's plan in addressing that. And then number two, I'm interested in the informal sector. Now, the informal sector contributes a lot of billions into the South African economy. So I want to know what is the EFF's plan, not to say that it should be formalized, but what is the EFF's plan in addressing the dignity that is taken away from people who are in the informal sector. Now you would start with your street vendors. The street vendors, it's fine, they're trying to make ends meet, but now what is the plan on ensuring that they are also incorporated to make sure that we don't have Gogo Abadala still sitting in Vulaineta just to sell amagwinya so that they can get food for their children. And then number two, you do in the unemployment definition, you have people who are looking for jobs and you have those ones who are not looking for jobs. So now those ones who are not looking for jobs are specifically focusing on entrepreneurship, small, medium enterprises, and all of that. So now I want to know, Guti, in the plan of creating jobs, how are we going to ensure that these people who are starting entrepreneurship are capacitated? Because the current state only accommodates people whose business has been over 5 years, and then you find that those ones who are still starting are not incorporated anywhere in the plan of ensuring that their business succeeds. So what is going to be the plan of capacitating them, and what is the role that the EFF is going to play in ensuring that SMMEs last for a long time, and they ensure that everyone who is in the SMMEs is given enough opportunities, skills, and funds to ensure that everything is incorporated, and then make sure that it contributes into the economy, that will be generating money, that ensures that more employment is created.
Sure. That is, thank you very much, Mrs. for that question. That is really a mouthful there, but I think she mentioned quite major things that you can just respond to. Firstly, the issue of inequality within the workplace, within the different sectors. She mentioned the issues of SMEs and young entrepreneurs entering the space, and the formalization of street vendors. So you can begin then to see that response.
No, thank you very much. I think one, it's a known fact that the EFF has been advocating for protection of women and children, and we will not change from that. The EFF says women must be given priority in all levels of employment, not only be reduced to secretaries, like you have said. That is why you would even see that even when we go to our assemblies, the EFF is always against the idea of women only being treated as for or being accepted for deputy positions and all of that. Because we understand that, as maybe taught by Thomas Sankara, that when you capacitate and develop women, you are actually developing the whole nation. You are building a future wealth and for generations, for that matter. Because women are a very important part of our society. So the EFF government will ensure that women are prioritized and their rights are protected within the workplace. And when there are opportunities, we're not saying that we're going to discriminate against men, but we are just simply saying that priority will be given to women. Because previously, the previous regime, even the current regime, has disadvantaged women, and they have reduced women into subordinates of men, and as the EFF were totally against that. When it comes to the issue of formalization of informal sector. Actually, we are of the view that you don't necessarily need to formalize the informal sector, because on its own currently, it's creating a lot of job opportunities. But what must happen? The government needs to find a way of protecting the rights of these informal sector business people, ensuring that one, they operate in an environment that is clean, in an environment that is well protected, in an environment that allows them to grow their businesses. Because like we have said, that there are old gogos in our society that we know that she's been selling amagwinya by taxi rank for a very long time. And you realize that she's making approximately in a day about 100 rand, and then she goes home. It's enough to buy meal and maybe shebonyan. But if this gogo could be given a space, can be given a structure, if the government can build a structure for the gogo to operate in, then this gogo will see a need to say, instead of selling amagwinya water, maybe let me now venture into also selling plates. Let me now also venture into selling small consumable items that people need on a daily basis. And then knowing that when I leave this business, when I go home, I don't need to take my stock with me, but there's a place where they will be locked in and be kept safe, where they will come tomorrow. An initiative like that has been done, but because we are dealing with a very reckless government, you would find that those our street vendors, not only them, you've got agricultural supermarkets in our own township, whereby you find a black man, a black woman having a big store selling fresh produced agricultural products. But because our government does not pay attention, they don't have storages for those things. As a result, if they are not all bought today or tomorrow, then they get wasted and then they lose money. But if we can make sure that as government, we protect their rights, one, for operating, two, create a safe environment for them, three, make sure that the space in which they operate is not only protected, but as government, we promote a consumption of local goods and services, local products that are produced from our small scale farming, from even not only that, you've got small scale mining companies that are owned by black people, but they are finding it very difficult to make it to the surface, because the government is totally ignoring that sector. In fact, you would find that it is the government that is abusing these people. Every now and then, we normally see it in Machaveng municipality. It's one that I know, Shay, where the municipality, whenever it runs out of ideas of how to generate or create revenue, they would go to these hawkers, street hawkers, and demand that they operate in the small hawks that they've made for them there so that they can pay them. But when even those small hawks that they've made, they are not really giving that sense of security to the street vendor to say, I can leave stock somewhere intact and all of that. The issue of SMMEs, we have had engagements with one of the companies that is tasked with building a solar plant in both Virginia, Odindalsrace, Mama Manifesto, to say, we have a problem that every time when big companies come into our space, they will come and say, no, we're going to leave 30%. And they think that that is enough. And then our argument was to say, but what is that 30%? Normally that 30% is just a small piece of work that this small company is going to do, and then there's nothing left for this company to show. But we said, one, we need as government to prioritize the well-training of these SMEs. Because young people get into business, like she has correctly said, that in the 15 million people that are economically active but without jobs, others are not necessarily job seekers. they are potential job creators in a form of being entrepreneurs. But if they just get into that business, like what the ANC does, they'll say, no, register a company, will give you work. And then they give you a small contract to procure stationery. But no one necessarily gives or takes time to train and develop our young people to say, how do you run this business? How do you grow this business beyond procuring stationery for 30,000 rand for a small RFQ and all of that? But how do you run this business in a professional way that is going to create jobs even for others? And that the only way that our SMMEs can be able to create jobs is when they are run professional. And that professionalism can only come if our government invests in them and make sure that our SMMEs are owned by people that has the full knowledge of what they are doing, not just give people small contracts or tenders simply because they affiliate or they've got proximity to somebody, but give them the necessary training and development. But not only that, also a financial support. Because most of our young people, they register these companies and they will apply. Maybe they see a contract somewhere, they apply for it. And the contract requires them that they must deliver maybe goods and services that amounts to a certain amount of money. Let's say 100,000 for an example. You come from Dinaway here in Mangaung. You are a young people that has just completed matric, or you are a young people that has just graduated. You don't have anything as yet. And then you must deliver to a contract of 100,000 rand. You don't have that money. When you go to the institutions that the government said that are established to assist young people, like your FTC, like that failed project of theirs called NYDA, all of them, they failed to assist our young people because their qualifying criteria were never meant to benefit Black people. They were maybe meant to benefit somebody else, but not Black people, because the requirements of what they want for them to be able to assist you are things that are beyond our reach as Black people. But if as government, we come and say we play an integral part in the development of SMMEs, because SMMEs are responsible of creating a lot of jobs. I will make you another example. When the EFF establishes a state-owned construction company that is going to build houses, who is going to be responsible for the procurement of your steel, your bricks, your sand, everything that you're going to need, that company is going to need? It is going to be the small, medium enterprises. Now, if the government does not play an integral part in developing these SMMEs, we are going to see them now and then failing. If you go and check with what is this thing that registers companies? CIPC. There's a lot of companies that are registered there, and they just die natural death without even doing anything. And they are sitting, others are sitting there on the shelves being bought by these greedy capitalists for their own selfish and narrow interests. But in most cases, our Black people, they just register companies, they die natural death because the state does not play the role that it's supposed to be playing in developing the SMMEs.
I think, DC, just to wrap your response up, I really appreciate the chain reaction that you put on to see that really the EFF Manifesto is 200 pages plus, but everything can be summed up into really land jobs now and load shedding. And that's what you really tried to show to us in terms of the response that you're giving. So I'm going to take 3 rounds of questions. Then straight after that, then we'll just wrap up the conversation. I will just then give over to my sister then for your question.
What I want to ask is that how do we then, as the EFF, create sustainable jobs that are going to meet the target market of the country? Number 2, trying to link my question to what Dombi has said, is that how do we then going to be able to give more entrepreneurial funding so that more jobs are being created, even though some of the people won't then be employed at the market, so that we can be able to bridge the gap in between. Number two, then how we're going to make sure that those that don't meet requirements of the jobs that are on the market, what is then going to happen to them? Because that is one of the reasons that makes most of young black people not to be employable, because the requirements, they don't meet them. Thank you.
Thank you so much, DC.
No, thank you very much. I think if you read the manifesto of the EFF, more especially on the section of jobs, you will realize that skills development is the backbone of this manifesto, because as government, we believe that for us to be able to respond adequately to the market and what it demands or requires, you need to have the necessary skills to acquire the jobs that are in the market. Hence, you would even see that we say that when we say we're going to establish a state-owned security company, it means that these people are going to be trained by who? By the state, to make sure that they are qualified security personnel that are going to meet the minimum requirements of being a security guard. The other issue of ensuring that we create sustainable jobs. That is why we speak about building state capacity, making sure that we have a government that is responsive to the needs of our people. And not only that, but also we speak about the development of infant and the current existing industries to make sure that these industries, they are developed in a way that their lifespan is extended. They are able to create jobs for a longer period than they are currently are. We are speaking about industrialization, which is one of the backbones of our plan and idea to create jobs. In that industrialization, we are speaking about beneficiation, but not only that, hence we say that we are looking into the development of diversified industrialization. We are speaking about promotion of locally produced goods and services. We are speaking about the marketing of local industries and also giving tax incentives to companies that are going to create jobs and companies that are going to consume at least minimum 50% of locally produced goods and services. That's how we're going to ensure that there are sustainable jobs, and also responding, of course, to the question that you pose about the relevance to the market. How are we going to make sure that whatever that we do responds directly to what the market demands out there? Hence, we say that the skills development is at the back of our mind, is at the back of everything that we're going to do, to make sure that we have people, the right people for the right jobs.
Thank you, DC. So wrapping up the conversation with the last two questions, I will start then with my sister then. Rather be the last question that we have.
My question to you, DC, is that how is the EFF government going to prevent this thing of, like now in our current government, when a person goes to look for a job, a graduate going to look for a job, they start by saying you need to have a license in order to qualify for the job. Maybe also you need 3 years experience. So how is the EFF going to prevent such things from happening?
As the EFF government, in fact, if our provincial manifesto was published, you would have seen that we have said that as the EFF government in Free State, one of the primary things that we are going to engage in developing young people will be to make sure that young people, when they're doing their matric, they acquire their driver's license, and that will be by engaging the necessary stakeholders out there which are responsible. Issuing a driver's license is a responsibility of government, by the way. And education, teaching a young person how to drive should be part of education. It should not be excluded from that. So as the EFF was saying that when we're in government, we are going to make sure that our matriculants, when they get their matric certificate, it must be accompanied by the driver's license. When you get to institutions of higher learning, hence the EFF says, in our government, we are going to give young people opportunities of doing internships, learnerships, and these other programs that are going to give them experience, because experience is very important when you come to the job market. So we can't demand from you something that we have not given you. So the EFF government is going to make sure that all young people, irrespective of their backgrounds, are given equal opportunities of benefiting from learnerships, entrepreneurship, internships, and all of those things, to make sure that they gain the necessary experience such that when they go to the job market to apply for jobs, they have all these requirements. They've got their driver's licenses, you've got your experience as required for the job.
I think that is quite beneficial, especially to a lot of young people that are currently sitting at home that are crying because of those current requirements that we're currently facing. You would get that an entry-level job currently, and you're asking yourself, how can you even get that 5 years of experience? So it is quite important that we actually look into those matters. And I think there's a quote that says that you teach me how, you give me a fish, you feed me for a day, but you teach me how to fish and you're feeding me for a lifetime. Thank you so much. Then, DC, just to wrap up, I know that a lot of young people will be watching this, and I want us to take it first year within the Free State. We know that here in the Free State, we at least have 3 institutions of higher learning. We have the University of the Free State, where we have 2 campuses here in Bloemfontein. We have one also in Kwakwa. We have the Central University of Technology. We have one also in Belcom. We have Tewo that is also spread amongst the province. Many young people are asking themselves that, yes, at least I need to get a qualification for me to get the job, and that is what we are currently speaking about. But we know that the current problem in institutions of higher learning really is the issue of funding, because yes, I might want to get a qualification and get a job and really get to where I want to be, but I currently do not have any means, because we know that all of the funding opportunities that are currently given by states have failed us since 2016 and before. So the EFF is entering into power post-May, and what are we saying regarding funding for young people, because it is having a direct relationship with us actually getting those jobs that we want.
No, thank you very much. I think one would appreciate that the EFF Student Command, since its inception, its primary battle has always been to fight for free decolonized education, because we know that these NSFAS and any other funding that is out there is not adequate to respond to the needs of our students at different institutions of higher learning. So the EFF government says, let education be free. Don't have registration fees, and don't come with technical ways of charging students. Education must be free. Students must get free accommodation. Students must get free books. Students must be taught for free. It is the responsibility of government to fund the education of our students. It is not, I mean, kids should be worried about passing, not how to get food, not how to get money to pay for their studies. So that is why, as the EFF government was saying, that the primary responsibility of the EFF government is going to fund the education and make sure that all young people in the country, they have access to free quality education, at least until they complete a degree. And then they are able to now find jobs on their own, and maybe after that fund the continuation of their studies if they want to study further. But primarily, from primary until you reach you acquire your first degree, education must be free. I mean, you get around and then you hear that students did not get their allowances. As a result, students are hungry. Students don't have money to travel to school and all of that. That is a clear indication of a failing government, because a government that is responsible would know that education, when they said that education is a key to success, I don't know, or now what were they thinking, because You can't say education is the key to success, yet you are not funding this key to success. So you are simply saying that you don't want this country to succeed. Because if they wanted this country to succeed, they would have made sure that all young people, irrespective of their backgrounds, they have access to education.
Wow, I think that is very, 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 very powerful. Thank you so much, TC. I am just going to give you one last opportunity just to really say your closing remarks post what everyone has asked. I'm just summing up the conversation that we are having, and finally say to a normal South African that is registered to vote, that is still trying to find who should I vote for and why should I vote for that specific political party. So I'm just going to give it over to you just to really wrap up the conversation for us, and then I'll just wrap everything.
No, thank you very much. I think let me first thank the opportunity that you give us to interact with young people, interact with voters out there in different communities. This is a very good initiative, and we hope that it will continue even beyond the elections. One, I would want to appeal to South Africans, both young and old, that if we want to see change in our lives, we have to stand up and make sure that on the 29th of May, all of us will go to the voting polls and vote for the EFF. There is a song in particular of Michael Jackson. I don't remember the name of the song, but I know the lyrics that says, if you want to see the change in the world, you have to change first the man in the mirror. So we have to change our attitude towards the elections. We need to see 2024 elections as indeed the 1994 elections, because in 1994, Black people in their majority, they went to vote. They went there with the hope that they were going to vote for a government that is going to liberate them, a government that is going to make their living conditions better, a government that was going to take care of them, a government that was going to dignify their existence. And we are saying as the EFF, this is that opportunity for every South African to go out there and vote for a government that is going to dignify you, a government that is going to look after you, a government that is going to protect your human rights, a government that is going to recognize humanity for what it is, but above everything, a government that is going to better the living conditions of our people. And that is the only government that can do that. It is the government of the EFF. So we want to encourage all South Africans to go and vote on the 29th of May. And for those that will not be where they are registered to vote, IEC has opened for applications whereby a voter gets to notify the IEC that on this voting day, I am registered in Ward 22, Mangaung, perhaps VD Vlagfontein, but on the 29th of May, I will not be there. In fact, I will be in Lusukisiki at a particular voting station. That the IEC makes provision that on that day, you can go and vote. It's not an automatic. It's not going to be like before when you just went to any voting station and voted. We need to apply. And for those that don't know how to do it, they can approach EFF offices everywhere in the country, in the province. We are ready. We have soldiers that are ready to assist them with those applications, ensuring that there's no vote that is going to go to waste. Above everything, 2024 is our 1994.
Indeed, 2024 is our 1994. Thank you very much, Deputy Chair, for really availing yourself for this interesting conversation. I think also one of the greatest things that we are seeing in this revolution is those that are leading us really coming down to the people and being in touch with the troubles and the problems that a normal South African faces. We've seen those that are in high positions really stay there at the union buildings and never come and have these conversations with a normal citizens that they are really leading. So we're really appreciative of your presence here. And that's how we wrap up the second installation of EFF Manifesto Mondays. Thank you very much. Do not forget to like, subscribe, and do drop your comments comments below. Keep on asking as many questions as you can to ensure that you are really understanding what the EFF promises to give post these national and provincial elections. With that being said, see you on the next episode of EFF Manifesto Mondays, and thank you very much. Amandla.
I'm